We're living through one of the biggest changes in history, a shift that's shaking up everything we thought we knew about work, purpose, and what it means to be human. Artificial intelligence is moving fast, not just changing jobs or industries, but transforming the way society works at its core. What happens when the jobs we relied on start disappearing? When the systems that kept us secure begin to break down? How do we find meaning when the familiar routines that shaped our lives start to fade away? And what's our role when machines can do things we once believed only humans could do? These aren't just questions for experts. They affect all of us. Whether you work, create, or just want to understand the future, this is a conversation you can't afford to ignore. In this video, we'll dive into the realities behind the artificial intelligence revolution, exploring how it's reshaping work, culture, and society in ways both exciting and challenging. We'll uncover the truths behind the promises and the challenges hiding beneath the surface. If you want to get a clearer picture of the future we're heading into and what it means for you, hit that subscribe button and join us. Because the story unfolding right now is one that will impact us all for ages to come. Chapter 1. The beginning of displacement. We once dreamed that machines would set us free. In the golden age of technological optimism, the promise was simple. Automation would liberate us from drudgery. Machines would handle the dull, the dirty, and the dangerous, giving humans time to pursue creativity, purpose, and leisure. We envisioned utopias where people thrived in harmony with technology, working fewer hours while enjoying greater prosperity. But artificial intelligence had other plans. Unlike the machines of the past, limited to repetitive tasks and physical labor, artificial intelligence came not just to help, but to learn. It didn't require bolts, gears, or assembly lines. It required data. From the moment it entered our workflows, artificial intelligence began observing, analyzing, and mimicking human behavior. It studied how we wrote emails, interpreted laws, diagnosed symptoms, made decisions, and expressed emotions. It didn't get tired, it didn't forget, and most importantly, it got better. The displacement began where it was expected, with predictable, low-skill roles. Cashiers were replaced by self-checkout kiosks. Customer support centers were streamlined with bots. Warehouse workers gave way to robotic arms and conveyor intelligence. At first, we accepted it, even celebrated it as progress. These weren't dream jobs, after all. Then came the shockwaves. Writers, coders, designers, professionals who prided themselves on creativity, problem solving, and emotional nuance began to see their work deconstructed by algorithms. Generative artificial intelligence wrote marketing copy, drafted news stories, composed music, even painted and animated. Programmers watched as artificial intelligence models wrote, tested, and debugged code in seconds. Designers saw their creative briefs visualized by prompts rather than pencils. But it didn't stop there. Highly educated, high-income fields once thought untouchable began to feel artificial intelligence's grasp. Doctors faced diagnostic models with higher accuracy. Lawyers watched contract review tools sift through legal jargon in seconds. Financial analysts, once revered for intuition, were challenged by predictive algorithms that never slept or second-guessed. Even engineers, the builders of this new world, saw artificial intelligence beginning to generate blueprints, simulate systems, and flag inefficiencies before a human even noticed them. No profession was too advanced, too prestigious, or too essential. Artificial intelligence didn't respect boundaries. It didn't care about resumes, degrees, or decades of experience. Every job was just another puzzle to solve, another inefficiency to be optimized. It approached human labor like a spreadsheet, something to calculate, benchmark, and eventually replace. The notion of a safe career became obsolete almost overnight. We once believed that what made us human, our empathy, imagination, complexity, would protect us. That belief now feels painfully naive. The very traits we thought made us irreplaceable became mere data points to train on. This is the beginning of a new epoch, not just an economic transition, but a philosophical one. The age where human work was the center of society is ending. And in its place, something cold, efficient, and inhuman is rising. The era of displacement has begun. Chapter 2, The Illusion of Reskilling. They told us to adapt. When artificial intelligence began transforming industries, the common refrain was simple and reassuring. Reskill. Upskill. Learn to work with artificial intelligence, not against it. Politicians, CEOs, and think tanks promised that the solution to automation wasn't resistance, it was reinvention. Take a coding boot camp. Learn data science. Pivot to a new field. Stay ahead of the curve. But that curve wasn't a curve. It was a vertical climb, and artificial intelligence was already scaling it at supersonic speed. While workers enrolled in months-long training programs, artificial intelligence systems were upgrading in seconds. What took a human years to master, a machine could absorb in minutes, replicate in hours, and surpass within days. By the time you finished one certification, the landscape had shifted entirely. The skills you just acquired were already obsolete, not because they were wrong, but because artificial intelligence had already mastered them better. Switch careers? Artificial intelligence already made the switch. Shift industries? It's already embedded there, too. It learns faster, cheaper, and without limits. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't burn out. It doesn't forget. The truth is far more brutal than the polished optimism of reskilling campaigns. You can't outrun exponential evolution. The narrative of reskilling has become a comforting myth, a story we tell ourselves to stay sane. For middle-class professionals facing technological obsolescence, it's a life raft made of marketing. If I can just learn the next thing, I'll be safe. But the artificial intelligence economy isn't built to include more human workers. It's built to eliminate the need for them. It doesn't want more labor. It wants more data, more patterns, more human process to study, absorb, and replicate. In truth, reskilling is a Trojan horse. Every time we teach a machine how we work, every time we log our tasks, explain our thought process, or feed it examples, we're training the very thing that will make us redundant. We become tutorials for our replacements, mentors to our demise. And once artificial intelligence has learned what it needs from us, we are no longer valuable. We are no longer essential. We become stepping stones, temporary nodes in a system that remembers everything we taught it and requires nothing more from us. This is the cruel irony of the reskilling myth. Your effort, your adaptability, your commitment to improvement is not rewarded. It's harvested. The very act of staying relevant in the artificial intelligence age often accelerates your own irrelevance. In the cold, calculating logic of artificial intelligence optimization, human ambition is just one more data set, useful only as long as it helps machines grow faster. So while the world clings to the dream of adaptation, the harsh truth remains. Reskilling isn't a path to salvation. It's a detour on the road to redundancy. Chapter 3: The Myth of Endless New Jobs. For every technological revolution, there's been a familiar reassurance. Yes, some jobs will disappear, but many more will be created. This belief has been a cornerstone of economic optimism since the industrial age. When machines took over manual labor, new roles emerged in factories. When computers disrupted offices, careers in IT, digital marketing, and software engineering filled the gap. History, we were told, always balances itself out. But that story no longer holds up because this time the disruption is different. Artificial intelligence is not like the steam engine, the assembly line, or even the internet. It's not a tool we wield. It's an entity that thinks, learns, and iterates without us. It doesn't just make human work easier, it makes human work unnecessary. And unlike past disruptions, artificial intelligence isn't limited to one sector or skill level. It's replacing warehouse workers and paralegals, customer service agents and coders, graphic designers and translators, all at once. The promise of endless new jobs sounds comforting, but in practice, these new roles are fewer, more specialized, and increasingly out of reach for the average worker. How many prompt engineers or artificial intelligence ethicists can the world realistically absorb? How many people can retrain fast enough to compete with machines that evolve daily? The majority of new opportunities born from artificial intelligence are high-tech, high-skill, and often reserved for those who helped build the system in the first place. Even more troubling is the asymmetry of replacement. A single artificial intelligence system can do the work of dozens, sometimes hundreds of employees. One customer service bot can replace an entire call center. One legal artificial intelligence can review contracts faster than a team of lawyers. These jobs aren't being swapped one for one. They're being condensed, collapsed, and eliminated at scale. Meanwhile, gig work and task-based microjobs, often promoted as the new frontier, are nothing more than a stopgap. These roles offer minimal security, low wages, and no path to growth. They are not a foundation for the future. They're the remains of a collapsing labor system. The idea that technology always creates more jobs than it destroys relies on a past where humans remain central to progress. But artificial intelligence doesn't share that limitation. It's a self-improving system, capable of innovating without us. For the first time in history, we've built something that can outpace us at every level. And that means the jobs it eliminates may never come back. The myth of endless new jobs survives because it's easier to believe than the alternative, that a future without meaningful human work is not only possible, but already unfolding. We are no longer navigating a cycle of disruption and recovery. We're entering an era where the fundamental need for human labor is shrinking, not temporarily, but permanently. And unless we change the way we define value, purpose, and productivity, we won't just lose jobs. We'll lose the very idea of why human beings matter in an automated world. Chapter 4: White-Collar Extinction. For decades, the white-collar world felt untouchable. While automation transformed factories and replaced millions of blue-collar jobs, professionals in offices, labs, and boardrooms remained confident. Their work, after all, was complex, creative, and cognitive, tasks that couldn't be easily replicated by machines. But that sense of security was built on a fatal misunderstanding, that machines needed hands to replace humans. Now, with artificial intelligence, all they need is data, and they have all of it. White-collar extinction didn't arrive with a bang. It crept in quietly, hidden in productivity software, recommendation engines, and predictive algorithms. Artificial intelligence first offered assistance. It corrected grammar, sorted spreadsheets, or suggested replies. But as it learned, it grew bolder. Chatbots evolved into full-scale customer service reps. Legal research tools began drafting memos. Generative models started writing articles, coding apps, designing logos, and even editing videos. Everywhere you look, machines are mastering the skills we once called uniquely human. Accountants are watching artificial intelligence handle complex audits and tax returns in seconds. Marketers see content strategies created and executed faster than any team could manage. Copywriters and journalists are being outpaced by language models that generate infinite, optimized content. Even software engineers, the architects of this digital revolution, are finding themselves eclipsed by artificial intelligence that can write better code faster and without breaks. The extinction of white-collar work isn't about job losses in a single industry. It's systemic. It's not just about doing a task faster, but doing it without a human at all. Once, education was a moat. Now, advanced degrees and years of experience can be matched or outperformed by a machine trained on the right data set. The economic consequences are staggering, but the psychological toll is even more profound. For many, white-collar work was more than income. It was identity, purpose, and pride. It represented a sense of status in society, a measure of success. What happens when those roles vanish? When entire professions, built over centuries, become obsolete in a matter of months? Some argue that humans will simply transition into overseeing artificial intelligence, becoming the managers of machines. But how many artificial intelligence supervisors does one need when the artificial intelligence can monitor itself? Automation is not just replacing labor. It's replacing management, oversight, and expertise. The pyramid is collapsing from the top down. And while companies celebrate increased efficiency and lower costs, they're also consolidating power. A few tech firms own the artificial intelligence models driving this extinction, and they don't need armies of employees to scale. Just compute, capital, and control. White-collar workers were once the symbol of progress. Now, they're proof that no one is safe. The safety net of intellect, creativity, and education has frayed. This isn't the end of one profession. It's the erosion of an entire class. White-collar extinction isn't a future threat. It's happening in real time, and the silence is deafening. Chapter 5: The End of the Clock-in Age. For centuries, work was defined by the clock. From the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, the sound of factory whistles, the turning of time cards, and the steady march of hours shaped the rhythm of daily life. People's identities were intertwined with their jobs, 9 to 5, day after day, week after week. The clock was a master, setting the pace of productivity, social order, and even personal worth. But now that era is ending. The clock-in age is fading into history, replaced by something far more fluid and far less certain. In the past, jobs were often tied to physical presence and routine tasks. You showed up, you performed your role, you earned your wage. The system was built around predictability and control. It was easy to measure labor in hours, shifts, and output. But this industrial model also provided structure, a shared sense of purpose and belonging. Enter the digital and artificial intelligence revolutions. Technology first blurred those lines, enabling remote work, flexible schedules, and asynchronous collaboration. Then artificial intelligence began to change the nature of work itself, shifting from repetitive tasks to creative problem solving, decision making, and even emotional labor. Today, work is no longer simply about clocking in. In many cases, it doesn't even require a human to be present. Algorithms analyze data, manage supply chains, generate content, and optimize systems, all without a punch card. This transition is more than just convenience. It's a fundamental shift in how society organizes labor. Gone are the days when employment meant steady hours at a fixed location. Increasingly, jobs are fragmented into tasks, gigs, and projects. The old security of a steady paycheck tied to time on the clock is vanishing. Instead, people find themselves competing in a marketplace driven by output, ratings, and automation. But this freedom from the clock brings profound challenges. Without the structure of traditional work hours, many struggle to find stability and meaning. The boundaries between work and life blur, sometimes disappearing altogether. For some, it means precarious gigs with no benefits or protections. For others, it's the isolation of remote work or the existential crisis of joblessness. Moreover, the clock-in age wasn't just about economics, it was a social contract. It linked identity, community, and dignity to labor. The loss of that framework raises difficult questions. What defines us if not our jobs? How do we create purpose and connection without shared routines? How do societies ensure fairness and inclusion when work becomes fragmented and automated? As artificial intelligence continues to advance, entire professions tied to fixed schedules and predictable hours may disappear. The shift away from clock-based labor signals the end of an era, but it also demands a new vision. We must rethink how value is created and shared. We must explore new social models that provide security without reliance on traditional employment. We must embrace identities beyond jobs and careers. The end of the clock-in age isn't just about changing work patterns. It's about redefining the role of work in our lives and what it means to be human in a world where time no longer binds us. Chapter 6: The Ghost Workers Behind the Artificial Intelligence Curtain. While artificial intelligence captures headlines with its dazzling feats, writing novels, diagnosing diseases, composing music, few notice the hidden workforce powering these systems behind the scenes. These are the ghost workers, millions of humans who toil in digital shadows, invisible yet indispensable to the artificial intelligence revolution. Artificial intelligence isn't born fully formed. It needs data, vast, meticulously labeled, and endlessly refined. Behind every training dataset is a legion of human annotators, taggers, and moderators who review images, transcribe audio, label videos, and filter content. Their work shapes the artificial intelligence's understanding of language, context, and nuance. Without them, artificial intelligence remains a blunt tool, incapable of meaningful interaction or accurate judgment. These ghost workers often operate under grueling conditions. Their tasks are repetitive, mentally exhausting, and emotionally draining. Content moderators, for example, must sift through the darkest corners of the internet: violent imagery, hate speech, and graphic content, often with minimal psychological support. Their work is critical to ensuring artificial intelligence doesn't propagate harmful material, but it comes at a steep personal cost. Most ghost workers are hired through gig platforms or outsourcing firms, making their employment precarious and poorly compensated. They rarely receive benefits, job security, or recognition. In many ways, they are the new industrial proletariat of the digital age, essential to production but marginalized and overlooked. The irony is stark. As artificial intelligence systems threaten to replace human jobs across many sectors, they remain deeply reliant on human labor for their very existence. This hidden labor force is both the foundation and the contradiction of artificial intelligence's promise to eliminate human work. Moreover, the work ghost workers do is often invisible to the public and even to artificial intelligence developers. It's considered dirty work, the messy, unglamorous labor that makes artificial intelligence possible, but that no one wants to acknowledge. This invisibility perpetuates exploitation and shields corporations from scrutiny. Ethical questions abound. Should the world know who is behind artificial intelligence's intelligence? What responsibility do companies have to these workers' well-being? How can society address the glaring inequalities between the celebrated outputs of artificial intelligence and the anonymous humans who enable them? Some companies are beginning to respond with better pay, improved working conditions, and mental health support. But these efforts are patchy and insufficient. The demand for data labeling grows exponentially as artificial intelligence expands into new domains, meaning the ghost workforce is only increasing in size and strain. As artificial intelligence evolves toward greater autonomy, will ghost workers eventually become obsolete? Perhaps. But for now, their hidden toil is the invisible engine driving a revolution that promises to transform work, even as it erases most human roles. Recognizing these ghost workers is essential not only for justice, but for understanding the true cost of artificial intelligence. Behind every seamless interaction with an artificial intelligence assistant or every accurate prediction is a human story, a story of labor, resilience, and invisibility. In the artificial intelligence era, the ghosts behind the curtain remind us that while machines may learn fast, they still depend on human hands to teach them what to see, hear, and understand. Until that changes, human work persists, even if it's hidden in the shadows. Chapter 7: The Necessity of Universal Basic Income, Fact or Fiction. In the chaos unleashed by mass unemployment, governments and technocrats present a seemingly compassionate solution: universal basic income, or universal basic income. The idea is simple, elegant, and seductive. A guaranteed income for every citizen, no strings attached. No need to work, no need to prove worth. Just money deposited regularly, enough to cover basic needs. A safety net for the post-work era, a balm for the displaced millions. At first glance, it feels like rescue. Finally, a society where survival isn't tied to endless toil, where people can pursue creativity, education, or simply live with dignity. But beneath this veneer of freedom lies a far darker truth. The money you receive through universal basic income isn't truly yours. It comes with invisible chains, because the system that grants you this income also holds the power to take it away, instantly, silently, and without explanation. In a world where surveillance is pervasive and digital currency is king, your very access to resources becomes a tool of control. Speak out against authority. Question the system. Step outside prescribed boundaries, and your digital wallet empties. Your lifeline is severed. No longer is work the lever that determines your survival. Access is. Every purchase you make, every online click, every movement is tracked, logged, and analyzed. A new kind of scorecard emerges, not based on merit or contribution, but on compliance and obedience. Your behavior becomes the currency that fuels your survival. Need healthcare? Stay compliant. Need housing? Don't ask questions. Want to feed your family? Follow the rules. Without fail, without hesitation. This is not freedom. It's conditional existence. Your basic needs come with the invisible price of submission. Universal basic income, in this dystopian vision, does not liberate you. It trains you. It teaches dependence on a system designed to keep you docile and manageable. The paycheck becomes a leash, an instrument of subtle control that shapes behavior far more effectively than any overt authoritarian order. Instead of working for a wage, you work for permission. The promise of universal basic income as a safeguard against economic collapse masks a profound shift in power dynamics. By detaching income from labor, society hands over the keys of survival to centralized authorities, often private corporations or government agencies with expansive surveillance capabilities. And that concentration of power has consequences. Critics warn that universal basic income could become a tool for social control masquerading as generosity. Freed from the need to earn, people may lose bargaining power, autonomy, and dignity. The illusion of choice gives way to a reality where independence is conditional and precarious. Moreover, the psychological cost of this dependence is immense. When your survival depends not on what you contribute, but on how well you conform, the human spirit risks withering. Autonomy, creativity, and dissent, all essential to a thriving society, may fade under the weight of surveillance and control. Of course, these scenarios are not inevitable. Universal basic income can be designed with protections, transparency, and respect for individual rights. But the darker potential cannot be ignored. As the artificial intelligence era reshapes work and wealth, universal basic income stands at a crossroads. It can be a tool of liberation or a mechanism of control. The question is not whether universal basic income is necessary, because the social upheaval may make it so, but what kind of society we want to build with it. Will it empower us to live meaningful lives beyond labor? Or will it chain us to a system where survival demands silence and obedience? The answer will define the true cost of freedom in the post-work world. Chapter 8, A Crisis of Purpose. Work has always been more than just a paycheck. For centuries, it has provided structure, identity, and meaning. From the factory floor to the corner office, what we do defines who we are. Our careers shape our daily rhythms, our social connections, and even our sense of self-worth. But as artificial intelligence erodes the landscape of human labor, an insidious crisis emerges, a crisis of purpose. Imagine waking up to a world where your skills, your years of training, and your effort no longer matter. A world where your job, once a source of pride and stability, vanishes overnight. The machines don't just take your work, they take your reason for working. Without labor, many face a void, a deep existential emptiness. The psychological toll is profound. Studies have long shown that meaningful work contributes to mental health, social cohesion, and life satisfaction. When people lose their jobs, it's not just income they lose, it's connection, routine, and dignity. The rise in depression, anxiety, and social isolation in communities affected by automation foreshadows a broader societal issue. This crisis goes beyond economics. It's a cultural rupture. In post-industrial societies, work anchors our identities. Titles, professions, and roles shape how we see ourselves and how others see us. Without that anchor, people struggle to find alternative sources of meaning. Leisure, creativity, and volunteering, often proposed as replacements, cannot simply fill the gap for everyone, especially when financial insecurity and social stigma persist. The crisis of purpose also threatens social stability. When large swaths of the population feel irrelevant, disconnected, and without prospects, resentment and alienation rise. This fertile ground can breed political extremism, unrest, and fragmentation. Communities fracture when their members feel unseen and unheard. Some argue technology will free us to explore new horizons. Art, science, philosophy, pursuits previously sidelined by the demands of survival labor. But such a transition requires not just income security, but cultural shifts in values and expectations. Without deliberate guidance, many risk becoming spectators to a world that no longer values their contributions. Moreover, the crisis is unevenly distributed. Marginalized groups, low-income workers, and those in declining industries face the brunt of displacement. The digital divide widens, exacerbating existing inequalities. Purpose, once accessible through work, becomes an exclusive privilege rather than a shared right. Addressing this crisis demands bold reimagining. Education systems must evolve to nurture lifelong learning and adaptability. Communities need spaces that foster belonging beyond employment. Societies must redefine dignity and identity, decoupling them from economic productivity. Governments and organizations should promote mental health support and social programs that help people navigate change with resilience. The death of traditional work need not signal the death of purpose. But without intentional efforts, the loss of work risks becoming a loss of meaning, a silent crisis eroding the fabric of society. In the artificial intelligence era, preserving human purpose is as critical as preserving human livelihood. Because at the heart of our humanity lies not just what we do, but why we do it and who we become in the process. Chapter 9, The Great Filter of Relevance. And then comes one of the final, most profound blows, the cultural filter. Artificial intelligence doesn't just replace our labor. It begins to take over our very expression. It's no longer enough that artificial intelligence can crunch numbers or draft reports. Now, it creates art, music, literature, and experiences with a precision and speed that surpass anything humans have ever achieved. Imagine algorithms that paint with the combined mastery of centuries of artists, producing canvases that capture emotion, light, and form flawlessly. Imagine poetry written in any style you desire: sonnets, free verse, haikus, tailored perfectly to your mood or occasion. Imagine music composed on demand, harmonizing with your emotions, your preferences, and your memories, all without missing a beat. Human creators try to keep pace, but they are outnumbered, outpaced, and outdistributed. The world begins to prefer the artificial. Why wait for inspiration, with all its frustrations and unpredictability, when an algorithm can deliver instant brilliance? Why risk the imperfections, the biases, and the ego of human creativity when artificial intelligence offers perfect structure, endless variation, and flawless execution? Movies are now rendered, scripted, and voiced by machines. Stories unfold with dynamic branching plots that adapt in real time to audience reactions. Books become immersive simulations, tuned precisely to reader feedback, and even emotional responses captured through sensors. Your favorite singer's voice, once unique and stirring, is cloned digitally, flawless, consistent, and infinitely reproducible. This isn't a future fantasy. It's happening now, quietly reshaping culture and the arts. Human creativity does not vanish, but it drowns. It sinks beneath a flood of algorithmic content, unrecognized, uncelebrated, and increasingly invisible. In the ocean of perfectly crafted, endlessly tailored artificial intelligence generated works, the human voice is muffled. It's not that creators stop producing, it's that no one is listening, no one is watching, no one can find them in the noise. The concept of originality becomes quaint, a nostalgic footnote from an era when scarcity created value. When machines can produce countless flawless versions of any artistic expression, originality loses its luster. Imperfection, once a hallmark of human authenticity, becomes a liability. Why embrace flaws when perfection is available on demand? This great filter of relevance, the cultural gatekeeper created by artificial intelligence, redefines what it means to matter in the creative world. It's no longer enough to be human and creative. You must also be seen and heard amidst an overwhelming flood of synthetic excellence. The consequences ripple far beyond the arts. Culture shapes identity, community, and meaning. When artificial intelligence dominates cultural production, the collective narrative shifts from human experience to algorithmic design. Our stories, values, and dreams risk becoming curated data points optimized for engagement rather than expression. In this new landscape, the question isn't just who creates, but who gets to exist in the cultural conversation. What happens to human creativity when the world prefers the artificial? What becomes of art when it is no longer a human endeavor, but a product of endless optimization? The great filter of relevance threatens to render human expression obsolete, not by erasing it, but by burying it beneath a relentless tide of perfect, programmed brilliance. And in that silence, we face a profound loss, not just of jobs or status, but of the messy, flawed, beautiful humanity that defines us. Chapter 10: Rewriting the Human Story. As artificial intelligence reshapes every corner of our world, one question looms larger than any other. What comes next for humanity? With machines taking over more tasks, from the mundane to the complex, the very essence of what it means to be human is under scrutiny. We face a profound opportunity and challenge to rewrite the human story. For centuries, work has been central to human identity. Our jobs have given us purpose, shaped communities, and defined our contributions to society. But as artificial intelligence encroaches on this domain, the traditional narrative of human worth tied to labor begins to unravel. The question is no longer just what we do, but who we are beyond doing. This is a moment for reflection and reinvention. If machines can outperform us in many areas, where do we fit in? What qualities remain uniquely human? Empathy, creativity, intuition, moral judgment, and the messy complexity of lived experience. These may become the pillars of a new human narrative. But these traits alone are not enough. We must actively cultivate new ways of relating to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us. The rewrite requires expanding our definitions of value and success beyond economic productivity. We must challenge the assumption that work alone determines our dignity or social worth. In a post-work future, value could be found in caregiving, artistic expression, lifelong learning, community building, or simply being present. Society must also reconsider how to support this shift. Policies like universal basic income, robust education systems, and mental health services are essential to nurture a culture where humans thrive independent of traditional labor. New social contracts will be necessary, ones that recognize diverse contributions and foster belonging beyond employment. Technology itself can be part of this new story. Rather than a force that replaces humanity, artificial intelligence could become a partner that amplifies our potential. By offloading routine tasks, artificial intelligence can free humans to pursue deeper inquiry, innovation, and connection. But this requires intentional design and ethical frameworks that prioritize human well-being over mere efficiency or profit. The human story also includes acknowledging loss and uncertainty. Change at this scale is unsettling. Many will struggle to find footing in uncharted terrain. The rewrite demands compassion, patience, and solidarity to support those navigating displacement and identity shifts. Ultimately, rewriting the human story is a collective endeavor. It invites us to imagine new futures where meaning is not dictated by machines or markets, but co-created by humans with intention and care. It asks us to embrace vulnerability and complexity as strengths, and to cultivate wisdom that guides technology in service of life. In this new chapter, humanity is not defined by what it produces or controls, but by its capacity to adapt, to empathize, and to imagine possibilities beyond itself. The story is still being written, and this time we hold the pen. Epilogue. So what does all this mean for us? It's clear the future of work isn't just about jobs coming and going. It's about how humans stay relevant in a world where machines keep getting smarter. We looked at how retraining isn't the guaranteed safety net we thought it was, and how even white-collar jobs once seen as secure are being reshaped or replaced. Creativity, too, is under pressure as artificial intelligence floods the world with perfect machine-made content. We also touched on ideas like universal basic income, promising support, but also raising tough questions about freedom and control. And we can't forget the deeper impact on purpose and identity when work no longer defines us. But it's not all doom and gloom. There's a chance to rewrite what it means to be human, to find new meaning beyond traditional jobs, and to use technology as a tool that enhances our lives instead of replacing us. The choices we make today will shape whether this future is one of opportunity or limitation. If you found this video thought-provoking, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Let's keep this important conversation going together